Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today's lesson is on Georgia O'Keeffe. She's one of my favorite women artists of all times. She was born in 1887 and died in 1986. And on the wall back here I have a couple photographs of her. Well, there's one photograph and one line drawing right here. There is Georgia in the corner, up to the right when she was an older woman. And then this is just a line drawing of Georgia O'Keeffe. But she was famous for making these giant, gorgeous flowers up close. Close-up views of flowers. And one of her most famous is the poppy, the red poppy that you see in the center. She's also well known for her Southwest deserts and bone pictures of the, still lifes and compositions with bone. She lived in New Mexico toward the end of her life, and so she was really inspired by the hills and mountains of the New Mexican desert. Today's lesson is going to be on one of Georgia O'Keeffe's flowers, and her view on life was that people rush by life too quickly. She lived at one time in New York City, and the hustle and bustle of New York City, she felt like people just missed out on all the little things in life and all the little things in nature and didn't observe small things and beauty of nature. For example, the centers of flowers. So what she did was she took these flowers and she cropped them down. You can see on some of them it's just part of a flower. And she made paintings that were huge. Some of them took up, let me show you my classroom door here. Some of them could have been as big as the classroom door. And it made people stop in their tracks and look and say, wow, these are beautiful. And, look at the insides of flowers, or look at the insides of tiny things. Look at all the things in the world that we're missing out on. So that's kind of her philosophy of life, is to slow the pace down and enjoy life and enjoy nature. And so we're going to go ahead and look closely at a flower, and we're going to draw it in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe, very large, with cropping on the edges so we don't see exactly the whole flower. Let me show you some close-ups here. See how some of the edges are cut off. And here's one here. This looks like an orchid. And we're going to be drawing today an orchid from an orchid tree. There's an iris. This is one of my favorites that she did. Right there. This is the flower that we're going to make today, and I want to put in a lot of the reproductive parts in the center here. And we're going to enlarge this so that it takes up probably, it'll be like this on our composition here. I'll get it really close. So we're going to get it really close, like Georgia O'Keeffe did, so that everybody can just stop in their tracks and look at how beautiful the tiny things are in nature, just like that. So that's going to be our composition. Our petals will go off the page, and then we'll have the large centers in the middle. That'll be pretty. Okay, let's begin. Our first step is to go ahead. Let's put the very center in. And this is the pistil. This is the very center one right here. And it's a little bit bigger than the stamens coming out. And the stamens are these smaller ones right here. So we're going to start off with that pistil here, which is the reproductive part of that flower. So we're going to go to the top, right up here. And let's go ahead and do a circle. And this is in the very center of the page, side to side. Okay? So I've got my middle, this is the edge of my page right here. And then this is our very center, and I came down about 2 fingers just to leave a little frame around it. Okay? So I'm going to come down 2 fingers, and then I want this to end about 3 fingers down here. So I'm going to put a mark about 3 fingers from my bottom. Now I'm just going to connect this. I'm going to have it, I don't want it to be a perfectly straight line. I want to give it a little bit of a curve. So I'm going to come down and then just kind of curve it right to here. So it's not perfectly straight like a ruler straight. And then I'm going to come like this. So we're enlarging the centers of our flower. Now from there, we're going to put in some of the stamens that surround this flower. And on the tops of the stamens, there are these little tiny anthers. Right here. They can actually move, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place them in. So I'm going to put, there's a couple of them broke off over here though. I'm just going to do, for composition's sake, I'm going to do 2 on each side. So I'll place one here. So I'm going to do a diagonal line. And I'm basically making like a rectangle box. And then I'm going to bring this right to here. Same on both sides. And then I'm going to do one on the reverse side here, on the opposite side. Diagonal line. Make a little rectangle box. And I'm bringing it to the center. Line to the center. And they can be curved. Graceful curves. Line to the center. And then we'll do another one on this side. I'm going to have this slightly shorter. Diagonal. This came down, so I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so this diagonal was this way. Now I'm going to do it the opposite to help my composition. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. This one's slightly shorter. And then bring it in, bring it in. Okay, so now we have our centers in. Now we're going to go ahead and do the large petal in the back here. So I'm going to come, we don't see some of these, the pistil in the center, which is thicker and bigger, this blocks where the petals actually meet my stem. So I'm going to come from here, I'm going to come up about probably 2 fingers up from the bottom here of this edge. And I'm going to start with the center pistil. So I'm going to come here and go up. Now, if I come across one of the stamens, I'm going to skip a space. I'm not going to draw on top of the stamen. I'm going to go behind, behind, and then I'm going to curve it around and go right off the page. So my petal is behind these stamens. The stamens are overlapping. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to come off of here to the stamen, come out. So this is diagonal, and then I'm going to curve back. Have the petal go off the page. That's this thing hiding back here. And we don't see a lot of these wrinkles. They're going right off the page. Now we're going to put another petal in. We'll come from here, from the very bottom. We're going to come out diagonal. Then this one's a slightly bent one here. So I'm going to curve it up. See how it kind of bends? And then I'm going to go off the page. This petal overlaps this one. So I'm just going to come from here. I'm going to come out. And then I'm going to come down. Give some curve right off the page. Now, if your curves are different than mine, that's okay. This is nature and every petal is different. Every flower is different, the way it curls and it bends. Now we're going to do it similar to this side. I'm going to come from here, behind, diagonal, behind, skip behind. Now I'm going to come up and right off the page, curving it off the page. I'm going to come from the bottom here and skip a space. So this is the actual petal right here. So imagine the petal. It's going to connect somewhere here. And then the petal comes out. It's thinner where it meets the center, but then thickens. So we come out. So I came across the page and then up. Almost formed like the neck of a bottle, the thin bottle here, that's upside down. And then we're going to do the lower petal here. We're going to come out and curve down the page. And the same on the other side. I'm going to come out a bit and then down. And we'll do the side of this petal. So I'm going to come out from this center, almost diagonal, going up and right off the page. We can leave a little space here. Same on this side. I'm going to come from this stamen somewhere in here, up, and then almost like just a simple gentle curve right off the page. And that's the basic shape of the orchid that is enlarged right here. We can put in this little, right here. This is the sepal. These are the little parts that protect the bud. See this? Let me flip it underneath. This was once the bud. This didn't even split. This just kind of folded under. But I see some of it when I'm looking at my composition. So if you want to put a little bit of that sepal color, which is going to be a yellow-green color, so I can put a little bit of that here on each side. And then it connects down. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, you can. And then it connects down into our stem right here. And I think that looks good. Now we'll start on our color. What I'm going to do for the colors, I'm going to use oil pastels, but you can also use crayon if you don't have crayon. And I'm going to put in the white that I see. I'm going to put in any light value color that I see. And then I'm going to paint in the entire flower with magenta paint, because that's the base color of my flower. So whatever is not magenta, I'm going to be putting in with oil pastels. So where I see this bright yellow here in the pistil, I'm going to go ahead and put in those colors. So I'm going to start with the bright yellow colors. And like I said, today I'm using some oil pastels, but you can use crayon if you don't have oil pastel. I started working up my colors, and I'm using light values right now of pink. This is actually the filament. And I'm pushing pretty hard here. I always break my oil pastels when I push. I do it a bit too hard, I guess, which is okay. Don't worry about it if you break your pastels. Some artists start off with all little pieces because they do break quite easy. And when I'm done with my oil pastels, what I like to do is put them back exactly where I find them in my set. That way, if I need to find a color that's similar, they're right there already, so I don't get my colors mixed up as I'm using them. And that's what I like to teach my students as well, so we don't mix up our colors. And then you can put a lighter value if you need to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in some of this white here, because I really want to keep that white, which is important when we paint over this. And I'm making kind of, let me see if you can see this. Yeah, you can see it a little bit as I do it. I'm streaking it, I'm not coloring in a solid, and I'm going in the direction. See how they have the veins in the flowers? The darker lines coming in? This kind of blends. It starts off white and then blends to the magenta nicely. And I'm also going to put in some really deep lines here. The veins and cracks of the flowers there as well. But I'm going to get the white in first. And then I'm going to show you how I went ahead and do the veins. I'm going to go ahead and put in some lighter yellow lines here coming out. Okay, let me make sure you can see what I'm doing. Okay, there. So my lighter yellow lines are just coming out from behind here, okay? Kind of like a fan. Then I'm going to build up some orange color, yellow orange. See, that's why I like the colors next to each other, so I can just find them fast. So the yellow orange is going to come out this way. And then I'm going to do a little bit of brighter orange in here. Just matching the colors you see. If you think of it as a puzzle and you're doing just one piece at a time, think of it as a color and just match what you see one color at a time. Now I'm going to take the darkest, and actually I'm going to use this violety purple color here, and I'm going to very carefully draw in the darker veins here. And they come from the center and then they curve up and around here. They fan out, or they radiate out from the center, like so. Sometimes you have to go over it twice to get a really thick. Now if I go too light, see the color? It's going to be very light. I want it to be really dark like this. And then when I paint over it with bright pink watercolor, this will resist and all these lines are still going to show the detail of the flower. Right here. Come up and out. Now I'm going to work up the two side petals and I'll show you what they look like when I'm done. I'm going to do it in the same way. Now I worked up some white down here. See in the petal? And then I did some lighter pink around the white, right in here. Now I'm actually using a magenta crayon because I don't have a really great magenta oil pastel. So it's okay to mix media if you need to. And I'm going to be putting in the vein, so I come from here and out, pushing really hard. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Slide this down so I can see it here, right here. And so these veins are coming, and then I'm just kind of blending it in. So pushing hard from my outer edge. See how it kind of it follows the curve of the flower, then toward the middle it gets straight. So those are the veins of my flower. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the veins of the flower down here. This is the next petal. This is not petal. This is a negative space, which means it's the background color. I'm going to put in a few of these lines. I may do this rose color. Oh, that's too red. Yeah, I'm going to come back with my magenta crayon. Just going to put it right on top. And coming from the middle here out for the veins. This one actually has a little bit of dark toward the middle here, so I'm going to bring that down. Dark there. Same thing with this one. This comes out like that. And I'll give one on the edge. Now I'm going to work up some yellow green down in here. Some yellow green color. Put a few lines in, and then I'll paint this green. So there we have our color on. Now we're going to go ahead and paint this in, and these will be the veins that show up beautifully. Any of the highlighted colors. I might want to bring a little bit more white down in here. And this will all resist. The white will resist right off. The paint will resist right off and create a beautiful effect. Now I've started my Watercolor Resist, and what I did was I mixed a single pan of magenta here, and I'm using some of the red color in a regular pan, red of watercolor, and I'm going ahead and painting it just right over the petal. Now make sure, because sometimes this can get confusing, make sure you're doing your petal and not the negative space, because this is actually the negative space right here. So I want my flower petal here, and I'm going in, I'm mixing a little bit of red with the magenta. Now when this dries, it's going to dry lighter. So it fades a bit as it dries. When it's wet, it's more of an intense color. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do the area here. This is the area that's exciting because you've got a lot of resist down here. Now if you want to lighten anything up, you can add, you know, your lighter water. But I'm going to go right on top of what I've done here, and you can see how it speckles You can even do plain water once your brush is loaded up if you want a lighter value in a certain area. You can also pull off some intense color. If it's too intense, just add water and pull it off and blend it. But the crayon down here gives a neat effect. This is just one way of finishing it. You know, you're welcome, of course, obviously, to finish it any way you want to. I'm doing this with elementary students who are 6 years old and 8 years old, so this is a great technique for them. It's simple and quick. I'm going to go ahead now and finish off my painting the way I'm doing it right now, and then I'm going to show you the results in the end. Okay, once you have painted the petal a flat color, if you want to add some shadow, you can see where one petal, when they overlap and one petal is behind the other, it creates a little bit of a shadow or a darker area on the edge. So I've just took a little bit of violet and I'm just drawing down the edge, and I'm going to just blend with some water here so that this looks like this petal is underneath the top petal. And just by adding a little bit of darker color, it creates that depth in your painting. Now I'm going to go ahead and work up this petal the same way. If you wet your edges, or wet a little bit in here of just water, and you can create some darker value here by just bringing the pure color to the edge, and then it just flows a little bit better like that. And I keep on going in my water constantly. And then I go right over this, and now I'm using just pure water down here because this is where I had the white. And my brush is dirty enough. I don't have to have deep dark color to get the speckle. And that's where my white is. And then I'm just bringing this back up like so. Now I'm going to add more color here to the color. And I'm adding some of this violet-y magenta as well. The magenta and the red, and I'm going to work up that. I just finished this, so it's still wet. And I wanted to show you here, this is actually one that has the bud still on. So the bud has not opened on this flower yet, but I wanted you to be able to see the bud. It's even got some pinkish color to the bud too, which is really beautiful. It's a pretty big bud. It's about 1 inch. And those flowers are huge. Right there. There's some water droplets on it. That's pretty. And here you might be able to see some of the pollen right there. Yeah, there's some pollen that fell off on the plants. But there's the finished one. Now, it's up to you if you'd like to paint in the negative space. This is the negative space that's left over. I'm just going to keep mine white. Sometimes Georgia O'Keeffe did it white or light grayish or peach. Some light blue often, depending on the flower and the colors that she felt would look better with it. But I'm going to just leave this natural white color, I think, and we're done. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and let me know in the comments how yours came out. And if you have not already, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe, and thank you.